All right, and we're live. So, hello, welcome to the third and final installment of the AIG career sessions. This particular session, we'll be looking at careers in mining and exploration. And a bit like the mentoring program panel discussion that we had earlier in the month, or last month, this will be focusing on the challenges that people face within their career. So how to manage your career and, looking at adversities that you'll face within things like decision making. On my left, I got the panel waiting right here. But first off, I will have to introduce our sponsors, which is just here. So gold sponsors, we've got DDH1, IGO, Nomic Exploration, and Map to Mine. Silver sponsors, CSA Global, and our bronze sponsor, Bellevue Gold. So a big thanks to them. Makes a big difference to the program, and hopefully we can turn those dollars into some face-to-face events later in the year, which will be exciting. So today's session will be between half an hour and an hour, and we'll be focusing on three main themes, which are maintaining career motivation, future-proofing your career, and making career decisions. So rather than having the panel sort of talk about different roles and the benefits of doing different things, we're going to look at some of the adversities and the challenges that people will face. So, things like internal conflict, self-doubt, burnout, and moments where you just don't know what to do in terms of career progression. So grab a drink, grab a snack, settle in. There's a comment section on the right-hand side, so it'd be good if you guys could give some feedback, or if you've got anything to add to some of the discussions, chuck those in there, questions, whatever. We'll try to integrate those into the discussion as we're going. So to introduce our panel, so on my left I got James Warren. James Warren is Exploration Manager at Tarly Resources.
Correct.
We've got Peter Libby, Managing Director of DigiRock.
Hi everyone.
And we've got Rebecca Prain, so General Manager at Cube Consulting.
Hi.
Thanks guys. I'm Ben Walsh, I work for IGO, Generative Geologist. All right, so first topic, the first theme I guess is motivation within a career. So I just want to sort of get a bit of a vibe for how you guys got into geology, and then also what you guys do to kind of keep the spark alive, because it's something that I think people face in all careers, which is those moments where you just feel like you don't want to do this anymore. So James, how did you end up getting into geology?
I fell into it actually. I started out at uni, I did 2.5 years of biomedical science. I always thought I might be a physio, or to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. So I did a pretty broad first year in science, and then after 2.5 years I found myself in a lab 6 hours a day, looking at little vials changing from clear to blue, and you knew an enzyme worked. And it was terrible.
Riveting stuff,
hated it. And I had some mates that were, they were going out on field trips, and they went down to Albany.
FOMO.
It was basically FOMO, so I fell into it from FOMO. I thought, God, I grew up in the country. Grew up in Katanning and Albany, and I thought, I can't sit in the lab for the rest of my life. I might have a look at this geology stuff, and fortunately a fair few of the topics I got credits for, and I haven't looked back since. It's been great. So, I hadn't heard of geology basically until I sort of started doing it, and it just was the right fit for me at that stage, I guess. And
Never looked back?
Never looked back, mate. So here I am, still a geologist, not a school teacher, as I was told I was going to be at certain points in my career.
Or driver.
And what about you, Peter?
Look, I always loved rocks as a kid, and I grew up in an orchard. And from a long line of horticulturists, so people that had their hands in dirt all the time, and it was a family property, and we had my grandfather's cousin lived 400 metres down the track from us, and they had won a lot of money in the lottery in the 1960s, and they travelled everywhere, and they brought rocks back from everywhere they went to, and they had blue asbestos on the veranda, and you name it, they'd been to everywhere in WA, and they had rocks. So I just loved their rocks, and I was just fascinated. And I remember when I was about 5, we were playing in a park in Stoneville, and all the kids were saying, "Come and play on the swings." I'm saying, "No, I've got to put my hand in the clay and leave a handprint here." So in 2 million years' time, people know that I was here. It would be a fossil. And that was when I was 5 or 6. Wow. Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to do geology. And so that's what I did. And I always have loved rocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Mad as a cat's name. I love it.
Traditional view of what people think a geologist is,
that's
someone
right.
who loves rocks.
Yeah. Rock nerd.
Rebecca, what about you?
Well, I share this with you, Ben. Growing up in New Zealand, I grew up in Otago, which geology in New Zealand is in your face every day. We've got volcanoes and fault lines and earthquakes and all the sort of, I guess, the more geomorphological things. Rocks and rivers. It's kind of exciting place. But I think I tapped into what you said, James. It was field trips. The fact that at first year geology, you were going off, hopping in a van every weekend and going off and climbing hills and looking at things. And from the University of Otago, we climbed mountains and to find one obscure fossil and picking up beautiful big lumps of serpentinite, and we could put a hand on the Alpine fault with however many hundreds of kilometres of displacement. So that really locked in a passion for me. I like the big picture rather than the rocks probably. Hadn't given it a minute's thought about a job, but just love our earth and having a look and be able to see it and say it and name it, and how did that happen? The creativity, I think, along with the field trips.
Yeah, it's the artistic part of it as well,
yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
There's two common themes I find with geologists. It's what you two just described, where it's kind of, you either love it and there's kind of a built-in kind of love for it, or people fall into it later through some other degree. Like a lot of people come from geography, they start off with a geography degree and then one day they do a geology course and they're like, what have I been doing?
Or they do architecture. So they think that because they're quite artistic, so they go into architecture, which is it's an artsy science, and then they go, oh, but I like being outdoors. I don't want to be inside. What am I going to do? Or I think I'll do geology.
Artsy science.
It's
true though.
Yeah,
isn't it? You need some level of imagination.
You've got to be able to see in three dimensions.
You have to be able to see.
And you've got to anticipate what processes actually look like in your mind's eye to be able to see not just the detail, but to be able to step back and to actually see the process that's caused something.
So, in terms of motivation, what do you guys do to push you along? I've had moments, I think everyone's had those moments in their career where they just think that everything you may as well just leave. And I think there are probably examples of people in the audience who have either left the industry temporarily or know people who have. So if you do actually know anybody who's left and the reason why they have, chuck it in the comments and we'll see if we can have a discussion about it. But what sort of things do you guys do to sort of push you along? Like, do you go out learning new things? Do you try to, is it talk to people who you find inspiring? What sort of tricks do you guys have to maintain that motivation?
It's a tricky question, I suppose, but I've been fortunate through my career and especially through postgraduate studies that the people you associate with are really passionate about the things they do, and their passion and motivation sort of rubs off on you, and you live and breathe it at that point, and you sort of think, wow, these guys are so passionate about it, and you start learning, and once you start learning things like the whole, as you guys, you see it in your mind, don't you? The whole thing opens up.
Yeah.
And I'm more process driven. I don't care so much about the rocks per se, but when I start understanding how the Earth has evolved through time, and we're talking about Archean rocks versus Proterozoic rocks, these are processes happening 3 billion years ago. Just the way your mind opens up and you just learn so much, and you're just absorbing all this information that's sort of where the initial motivation.
Or you take yourself to somewhere like Hawaii, and everywhere you go, so like you said, Beck, in New Zealand, your landscape is telling you stories constantly. So when you go back to places like Hawaii and you see the analogies of the Canadiite systems and everything, and you can stand on them, and you can go to Iceland and you can see pillow lavas that are created under glaciers and things like that. When you see this geology that you can touch that actually was happening back in the Archean, that's when it all starts making sense, and you get reinvigorated. You go, oh, it's not just a concept that someone's told me about. You can actually stand and you can actually see eclogites and stuff coming up, and you see the green sands in Hawaii, and you can see the olivines that are fresh, and we only ever see them in the Archean. So there's lots of ways to, if you like the processes and you like the beauty of rocks and the landscape, you just everywhere you go in the world, you can see it, and you can stay passionate. And you've got to surround yourself with passionate people that, people like John Wronski who just love to figure out where deposits are, and, that just they ignite your passion for it again, I think, reinvigorate everything. Yeah.
I guess maybe you're talking, Ben, more to, we've probably had times in our career where you've either been stuck on a rig for days or stuck down pit or underground.
Am I still going to be doing this in 12
years' time?
Am I going
to be doing this in a long time? And I know I've had a couple of times when I just cannot imagine that I'm going to be doing this job forever, because the jobs that we find ourselves in are not always as inspiring as, seeing it in action in nature. So I can understand why you've asked that question. And we've probably all had those moments where we've tried to find the passion again. But I think what these guys are saying, there will always be someone around you, that we're a big enough community, particularly in West Australia, that you can find somebody to have a coffee with who can reignite your passion, or examine your passion and examine your career choices. Talk to people, it's communication.
And it's also, you don't have to be a geologist stricto sensu, or whatever the Latin term is, that there are lots of different iterations of what a geologist looks like. I mean, I'm not a boots on ground geologist anymore. I'm a seat. I'm a shiny ass. I polish a seat, basically.
Me too.
But I'm still a passionate geologist. So my career looks different to the one I had when I started. So my vision, and I really never had. When I started and I graduated and had been working for a few years, I never actually saw myself ever having being in the position I'm in now. So there's always little choices to make, and you make those choices that do help to reinvigorate your passion for it, I think. And we all find our little place that we belong in. Everyone will find their place, and when those moments really hit you, go, well, let's just find the right path, because there's always a way forward.
I mean, something in my career that's been a big influence is actually the mentoring process. So I've found a few people, Steve Beresford's a good example.
Oh, he's an awesome mentor,
Yeah, so he inspires passion, but it's not what people traditionally think of. It's not rocks, it's not that sort of stuff. It's like looking at strategy, decision making, the psychology behind exploration, all these amazing high level things. Some people it doesn't appeal to, but I think finding that passion and then finding someone who's either a thought leader or you've heard talk recently or previously, finding those people.
You found a person that was able to inspire you, and I think that's what I'm saying, that whatever your bent is, it might be that you actually don't have a passion for it and you need to examine what you're doing with your life. But if you really think the science here, you've got to find a person. Go on LinkedIn, look at the companies, look for the title of the person that you aspire to be, and see what they've done, see where they've been. But also sometimes, we're all going through a global pandemic at the moment. Sometimes you just have to knuckle down and go, do you know what? I'm going to read a good book every night and have a glass of wine, and I'm just going to keep on ploughing through.
I think that's a trap that a lot of young geologists may fall into, and I know I probably did at times as well, but sometimes you have to stay present. It's a bit cliche, and you go, you know what, I'm on good money, I've got a good education. Yes, sure, I have to sort of knuckle down and do the hard yards for now, but it's going to change eventually. There's going to be a time when an opportunity will come up, and we were talking to the other Peter the other night, where you have to be flexible enough to realise that opportunity and then grab it when it presents itself, I suppose. And then you'll get another kickstart. You're not always going to be motivated. It's going to go up and down. You'll plateau and whatever it might be.
And that'll happen in the course of a week, to the course of a month, to the,
today.
And often it comes...
the course of a couple of years.
And often it'll come down to your personal interactions as well, He or she who sees the most rocks wins, as far as being a geoscientist, a true geoscientist goes. But a lot of what we do is about the people. And so as long as we're in good teams and surrounded by good people, then that'll keep us on our journey and in the right direction. We think that as geologists that what we're doing is rocks. And yes, the more rocks we see, the better geologists we become. But in actual fact, what we're doing every day is we're dealing with people. We're managing people, getting the best out of people, trying to make people realise their own unique skill set and bring the best out in them. And so there's there are people that are going to be good leaders, good technicians. Everyone's different.
And everyone has their place.
Or we might be working with difficult people.
We might be working with difficult people.
We'll touch on that topic later.
So that's a really good segue, actually. So,
See, I'm feeding you.
that's right. So one of the things that I've noticed in my career is managing workplace conflicts can be a really difficult task. This is particularly for early career geologists, but it can also count for people, with at least 20 years experience. Dealing with difficult people can be challenging, and bad relationships can lead to, various opinions about you. They can stick, and people remember the types of relationships that you had in a career. So what are sort of some of the things in terms of tricks?
I turned my phone down, I promise. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's right.
Hi, whoever's calling me.
Tricks you could use, or at least ways to approach these sort of situations. So dealing with a difficult relationship that you might have, particularly in the fields. This counts for mining geos, resource geos, it counts for managers and operators, any sort of relationship. What sort of things do you guys have from your experience that you've used to sort of alleviate these problems?
It sort of goes back to the point you were making just before, and that everyone has a place, and that's true for geologists, but it's also true for the people you work with, whether it be drilling contractors or mining contractors and things. And someone gave me a good piece of advice once. I can't remember who it was, but you've never drilled a metre in your life, so don't expect to know more than the driller. So so managing workplace conflicts, one, you can limit them by showing other people respect.
Absolutely, respect is so important. Respecting other people's knowledge.
And listening to them and learning off them. I've never drilled a metre in my life, but I'll talk to the driller, and I like to think I know a little bit about drilling now and things like that. And when I was working underground with the jumbo operators and things like that, you come across people and graduates who, they're thrust into, and as graduates we are thrust into management roles. We're managing fieldies or safety. That's the first job you get straight off the boat, basically, is managing people.
And we now have industrial manslaughter laws as well that we've got to negotiate our way through. There's lots of stuff that we've got to deal with around people and conflict,
Yeah, exactly. And then, so if you show them respect and say, instead of, shut down the face, I want to go sample it, say, oh, look, when can I come back and sample the face? It's a little thing that means a lot to the other person that you're trying to work with. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, look, with underground, is a classic environment because it's pretty, it's one person and it's their livelihood with the number of metres they advance, basically.
Exactly.
And so as a young geologist, you can really impact someone's income if you are holding people up unduly. And so, you need to learn, especially when in an underground environment, you've got to learn from your jumbo operators and learn from your bogger drivers. And, if you really need to get into a heading to get it mapped, I haven't been underground for years, I don't even know what the system is that underground these days.
It's the same.
But if you've really got to get into a heading, then you need to, work with your jumbo operator and say, well, look, hey, why don't we do this together or something? It's about teamwork. Many a time I've sampled with my jumbo operator, I said, stop whinging at me. If you want to get this job done more quickly, stand next to me and help me and we'll get it done in half the time and you'll get more metres drilled. So, and then you learn off each other and they go, oh, what is this that you're actually doing here? Yeah. So it's a bit of, two-way street and respecting each other's knowledge.
This is what we're trying to achieve, and that's the same with drilling. Like, well, I don't know what you're doing, you don't know what I'm doing, but this is what we're trying to achieve. So how about we try and do it together rather than...
That's right.
But then there's the actual, as the other Peter said, there's inevitably people that are just difficult to get along with. And I guess just don't bullshit a bullshitter. Be honest. We were talking about telling stories the other day. I think the first person I had to sack and kick off site, I said, I danced around the edges. I was like, your work's okay, you're not fitting in, blah, blah, blah. And come back to bite me because he had the nerve to ring me up for a reference. like, oh, what have I done? You know, if I should have just been honest with him. And so, just be honest. I think people appreciate honesty, even if they don't want to hear it. So.
Yeah. And go early on difficult conversations. The longer you leave a difficult conversation, the more difficult it is to have, because by saying nothing, you condone people's behaviour, and so people just assume that their behaviour is okay. So the earlier you go on the conversation, and the earlier you try and resolve it, the less conflict and the less chance there is that the same mistakes are going to keep happening. And people don't like to make mistakes, so they want to know that they're doing the right thing, or if they're not doing the right thing, that it can be corrected. They don't want to find out when they get the pink slip. They would have liked to know a bit earlier than that.
But conflict is always around. It doesn't matter if you're a new graduate or I've been working for 31 years. It doesn't matter. You are going to have situations. It's an interpersonal thing, and it happens in all parts of life. When you're talking about mining and exploration and heavy equipment, you've got the safety layer on top of that as well. So that makes it even more difficult. But I think what Peter said about the putting your head in the sand approach, which unfortunately a lot of the people that I've met as geologists do tend to be more scientists, and I don't really want any interpersonal
I don't
conflict.
do people, I just want to do rocks.
I don't do people, I do rocks, or I just really want to do this. Unfortunately, we can't work in these interconnected environments like that. We can't be a pure scientist. You'd have to be the biomedical scientist in the lab, or the brilliant physicist. There's not many professions these days where you can be an island. There just aren't any. And conflict is just unfortunately part of human nature. I still have conflict, and you will develop those skills of conflict resolution as you move through your career. The thing is to not be a dick about it, but break it early. You can't go around telling everybody what your opinion of them is, and you need to do this to make me happy, and you need to do that. It's the collaborative thing. Sometimes it's actually holding your tongue. It really is. Yeah,
it's choosing your conversation.
Choosing your moment.
And I guess also at the heart of conflict as well is an opinion that it's the other person's fault. So there's also a certain amount of introspection there where you have to look at yourself and just say, I'm the only person who can deal with this, and everything else is an external factor.
That's right. You're the only one that can control it. You cannot control another person.
Absolutely.
And wait till you're a parent of a teenager, you will know that even more. But you know it with, maybe with fieldies, you cannot change their behaviour. All you can do is model appropriate behaviour, and then say, look, I would prefer if you did it like this, or you have to do it like this. But you can, as long as you treat that person with respect, it doesn't matter if you're going upwards or downwards, respect goes both ways. And you never know where those people go who might have worked for you. They might become your boss in 10 years' time, and that's happened to me a couple of times.
Or they become your clients.
Your clients, exactly.
So many of our staff that used to work for us have become our clients. It's so important that, and Western Australia, let's face it, we've got the largest mining industry in the country. So the people you work with here now are the ones you're going to, if you stay in WA, you're going to be working with for the rest of your career. And it basically, my husband and I are both geologists, and we have a daughter that's done a geology degree, and we've got another daughter that works in mining, and she calls herself a pretend engineer. And we are really, our whole family and our whole life is invested in geology, geoscience, mining, and all of our friendships with our close friends that our kids have grown up with, it's all mining in our family. So for us, it's a lifestyle. And it's the people that you meet in these towns. It just seeps into your very fibre of your being, basically. So, we probably have it to the nth degree of being in that space. But it's certainly, we're all going to be here for a bloody long time, so we need to make certain that we don't burn bridges unless we really need to.
So do you think that's one of the soft skills that maybe is overlooked in the industry, is actually that kind of emotional intelligence, relationship building aspect, the sort of the soft skill around networking that people need to develop and kind of underestimate, particularly early on. I remember early in my career, it was all about rocks, and that was how I was going to get to where I wanted to go. And then I realised one day that it's actually a small piece of the
It took to me until I was 35 to actually realise that you had to do networking.
And it's not soft skills either, Ben.
Yeah.
These are like critical professional skills. I actually disagree with even calling them soft skills. I think people skills are an incredibly important part of your toolkit for developing a professional career.
Exactly. If you want to be in the industry, as you say, otherwise academia is probably more down your
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And academics have to be charming to get money.
Exactly.
So, everyone has to. Everyone has a master.
Everyone has to turn
know.
an application.
Everyone has a master. You're right.
So they're not soft skills. They are a critical part of anybody's tool chest, particularly a geoscientist who might think I'm just a scientist or I'm just into rocks or just go back to my donga and I don't have to interact with anybody. It's human, and it's also important. I know I'm probably preempting where you're going as well. Moving forward with rapidly changing technology, I just watched a TED talk before I came, and I can't remember who it was, but he said we've got to stop letting the technology dictate who we are. We have to remember that we're humans, and we have to remember about our connectivity and our creativity. That these are the things that make us different from. These are the things that have helped us to excel, and we have to remember that we're not being led by technology. We have to remember that we are connected beings, and it's a bit philosophical, but this whole COVID thing has totally pointed that out to us.
Yeah.
We're all having to isolate from other people, and how horrendous was that for
That's right.
So the really introverted people were probably really happy. I know there were some people, but everybody has a degree of connection that they want.
Yeah. And people say, well, can you learn people skills? Some people are inherently better at it than others, but if you force yourself, it's like anything. We procrastinate about things, and we go, things that we don't like doing or we don't really know how to do properly, we procrastinate about and we don't do them. And, an example is, and she's going to hate me for saying this, but our youngest daughter, when she was at uni, she said, I don't want to go to these events. I don't like talking to people. I don't know how to talk to them. I said, just introduce yourself and ask them 3 questions and find your connection with someone, and then you've got something to talk about. Ask them where they're from. It's WA. You're going to know someone that they know. Within about 3 questions, you'll be fine. And she forced herself to do it, and now I get told that she's like the networker extraordinaire. So for a kid who hated networking, she does it really, really well, and it serves her really well in business development in the role that she's in, the industry that she works in now. It serves her really well. And so she wasn't a natural networker. So yes, people can learn those people skills if it's doesn't come to them naturally. It just takes a bit more effort, and you've got to force yourself to do it.
And I guess this is something that transcends any profession within mining and exploration. It's not just geos.
Yeah,
Counts for everybody.
It's a life skill.
Yeah, that's it.
But you are talking about some people, are making massive generalisations, but there is, I work with 15 reasonably introverted geologists. You have got those people, particularly in some aspects of it. An exploration geologist, if you're doing greenfields, you're out by yourself. You're probably the kind of person that likes being out by yourself. So then you have to force you to network. It's a different proposition.
Yeah.
You're dying.
Sorry.
Don't die.
Our social distancing. Yeah.
Actually, I guess turning that around as well, for people in senior positions, do you think people need to focus also more on the value that they see in people? There's a couple of examples I've heard of, someone with an organisation doesn't like X person because he doesn't contribute, but actually behind the scenes he's contributing a lot directly to someone else, and there's actually an enormous amount of value. Do you think people need to focus on kind of value as opposed to just their outright skills?
I think a good manager is someone that recognises people's strengths and weaknesses, and then promotes their strengths and builds up their weaknesses. So, everyone, again, this comes back to everyone has a niche, but a bad manager is someone that will micromanage and feel threatened by someone's particular skill set or whatever. But a good manager is someone that go, okay, this guy's a bit different. And, most teams have got a wide range. It might even only be 5 people, but those 5 people are so different from each other in a lot of regards. And someone that can recognise people's differences and bring them together for the greater good is someone who makes a good manager, rather than someone that steps on someone because they're a bit different or they're perceived not to be doing a good job. And
It's not
how do you
judgy.
become
Like,
a
who are you?
manager?
Who are you to judge? You know, the thing is really you do. I know it's awful, but if you're in a specialist type of role, you actually do need to stay in your lane as far rather than sitting there and watching what everybody else is doing and criticising and things. And you'll find that decent management team is not going to be running down one. People will see people will see
and
the whole picture and how it all fits.
That's
together.
right. And if
A decent
people
manager
aren't fulfilling a brief they've been given, ask yourself why. Why is this person procrastinating about doing this job? It's because they don't like it, they're not good at it. They perceive that they're not as good at that as other things. It comes to them naturally. Well, that's where you work on people's strengths. So you play into people's strengths and you get others in the team to fill the gaps of that person. Why? People should be able to enjoy going to work. Yeah, there are things that we don't want to have to do, we just have to do when we go to work. But if we're finding that our staff aren't doing certain tasks, let's ask ourselves, well, why aren't they doing them? Number one, do they have to be done? If people hate doing them so much, why is it people hate doing them? Are we doing it wrong? And is there someone else in the team that can actually be challenged by bringing people up to do that section of their job and free these people up to do what they're really good at?
There's a difference between challenging someone and sticking them in the deep end as well.
That's right.
You want to challenge someone without putting them so far out of their comfort zone that they become frozen.
And then you basically kill their passion, because then they think they get this perception that they're useless and they can't do it. When in actual fact what's been done to them is they've been thrown in the deep end and they've been basically thrown in to fail.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a confidence thing as well. Sometimes if a person isn't doing, I've noticed that particularly with people, they will avoid things that they don't feel confident that they have the ability to do. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, you know what, you've got this. You actually do.
Or just sitting with them and doing it once together. And there's no better gift, no more precious gift you can give to anybody than your time. So if you sit with someone for half an hour, and if you think, well, this person just isn't getting this done, why is it? If you just spend half an hour with them, you go, okay, so let's do a bit of a tutorial on this. Let's spend half an hour together. You step through something and then they go, oh, that's so easy. I don't know what I was so worried about. So once you do it once, it's like when you're teaching a kid to ride a bike, you've got to do it together first. And that's how people just value being given time by somebody else, because everyone's time poor. And we always think we've got something more important to do than go and spend time with our team, but it's our team that need us.
And that's, again, looking back inwards, because we love nothing more than when someone sat down with us and went through something that you think, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And someone takes you through it, and then all of a sudden you get that confidence, you grow a leg and away you go.
Yeah.
I still remember the guy when I first rocked up on a mine site 31 years ago. I was dropped off in the middle of the night on the side of the road on the way to Meekatharra, turned up in mine. I didn't have a clue where I was. Anyway, about day 3, I ended up in the core farm, and this guy goes, oh, well, what do you know? And I'm like, I don't know anything. And he took me through, he took me through the whole processes of sampling, exploration, the types of drill rigs, what then happened at mine. And he's probably spent half an hour, because I was an academic geologist out of University of Otago, and he took me through that. I still remember that guy's name.
Yeah.
I know what his name was because he took the time to do exactly what you're talking about. I don't remember a lot of other people's names, but I remember his name.
Don't remember what I had for breakfast.
He disappointed me later. But I remember his name, and I remember that kindness.
Yeah.
It's that kindness.
And just seem to be kind to people. Yeah.
So we're getting quite a few comments coming through now. So Misty says, as a student applying for vocation positions, I've noticed many companies saying they would prefer strong leadership skills. Is this something that you're seeing changing? Or has it always been kind of that way? Or is it just becoming more explicit now?
That's interesting to ask a graduate to display strong leadership skills.
Yeah.
To me, it might be strong self-management skills. I think that's not a particularly skilled job advertisement, to be honest, to ask a graduate to have strong leadership skills. I'm not saying that graduates don't have it, but leadership is it's a tool chest.
It's something you can learn too.
It takes a long time to get and I'm still learning, and I hope to still learn for the next 15 years.
And again, there are people there's some people that are natural born leaders, and other people that have to learn the skills as they go along. And so it's really hard to say you want leadership skills to be demonstrated in a a graduate who might be 20, 21.
Yeah, exactly. Who's had no exposure to the
Yeah.
I think
industry
it's
or
self-management.
leading people.
I think what that
I-
job wants is someone who's actually good at managing themselves, like who has a bit of self-confidence and can, can be. I think that's confidence.
Look, and for us, my vision is always when we interview someone at DigiRock is I want to employ the exploration managers of the future, right? I want the people that are driven and they're passionate and they want to find a mine in the future. And often those people are the ones that are these inherent natural leaders that have been, the captain of their school, and they're just these outgoing people that aren't scared to, do a brain dump and ask what they think might be a dumb question because they really want to know. You can pick natural born leaders early, but you can call that the low hanging fruit because it's easy to see in your CVs. So you can see it. We've got a bit of a matricized formula that we use to choose our candidates of the future, our exploration managers of the future. So you can do it, but they're the that's only 10% of the population. So when you say that you're trying to choose that 10% of the population that are inherent leaders, there are others out there that learn those skills as they go along. So you do self-select out all those people that are going to be really good leaders one day, but just haven't displayed those traits yet or haven't had the self-confidence to do it yet.
So I might switch gears a little bit here. So this is a question for you, Peter, specifically, which is... what advice would you give to someone starting out or going out on their own? I remember I met with you and Peter Onley a few years ago about,
that's right.
About starting a small consultancy.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving that thinking, shit, I've underestimated this. So do you find, so what are some of the things that you would tell people straight up?
Okay, so if you want to go out on your own, so you got to figure out what's the end game. You've got to have an exit strategy, right? My biggest failing when I wrote the business plan for DigiRock back in 1998, early 1998, when I did my little 5-day tech course, my little TAFE course in Tennant Creek, was they said write a business plan, but they failed to tell us you need to write an exit strategy. Like, now you can get yourself into these businesses, but how do you get yourself out? And this is where this is where I struggle with the motivation now, is like I'm at the other end of my career. How do I get myself out of this so that I can actually retire, So, yeah.
Not helpful to the young people.
But one of the beautiful things about geoscience is that we earn a fairly decent income. And if we set ourselves up right and we make good decisions in our lives, we can actually live a fairly simple retirement life very early on and enjoy our good health while we can. So there are a lot of things, and we can go and travel the world and see lovely rocks, see the landscapes we all want to see. But we've got to really understand, why do we want to be in business for ourselves? So, is it because you want to have you like to make your own decisions and you don't want to be enslaved to anybody? Well, I'll tell you what, when you start up your own business, you are answering to everybody all the time because that's your job. You actually have to satisfy your clients. And when you own your own business, and if you want to grow it into something, you live, eat, sleep, breathe it. It's your life. I mean, I was at networking events. Sometimes I'd be at networking events 3 times a week. When I first started the business, I'd have the kids at home from school and they'd be answering the phone while I was on the toilet. They'd say, sorry, Peter can't come to the phone. She's on the toilet at the moment. It's like, no, you don't say that. You say, I'm sorry, Peter's unavailable. Can I take a message? So you've got to understand why you're doing these things, But it is rewarding. You do get a lot of self-determination in it. I work 1 week in Perth at the moment and 1 week at our beach shack, and with being able to remote work, it's great. You can do that. So you can choose your own terms, but you're shackled to your business.
And I imagine there's a lot of hard decisions you've got to make along the way.
Oh,
too,
there
right?
is, and it's the legality. Basically, with all the new mining legislation, there's industrial manslaughter stuff. If I am negligent in my role as a director of my company and one of my staff members dies because I haven't made sure that the client they're going to is safe, and the client makes a bad decision because the person I think is going to be supervising the person's not there and they've completely abandoned all the procedures I thought they had, and one of my staff members is seriously maimed, I could go to jail for that. So these are the sorts of things that can keep you up at night. In GFC, 2 weeks I didn't sleep trying to figure out how I was going to save my house and save my business. Or not the GFC, the mining crash in 2012. You know, you remortgage your house and you survive. So, you know, you've just got to be, basically, you're in it. If you're in it, you need to know when you're going to be able to get out of it. Otherwise, you're in it till, you know, you basically you turn up your toes.
All right.
But it's good fun. So don't let me scare you off it. It's great fun. It's nice being the master of your own destiny.
You've had a lot of fun.
Oh, we have.
Some great things.
Oh, we do. We've had lots of fun. We've been to Tanzania training people, and we've done some really amazing stuff there. It's lovely.
So we're kind of going to go back a little bit to what we were talking about before, which is kind of skills that have been overlooked, that you see being overlooked today, or at least things in CVs in particular. One thing I noticed, I've only shortlisted for one position, and I think there were 70 applicants, and 90% of them were identical, the CVs. I couldn't tell them apart. You know, you can expect someone with 5 years experience to have worked in Archean Gold, to have managed rigs, probably worked on Aircore, RC and Diamond, and, you know, the rest is kind of the little bits and pieces. They've worked with ARC, just whatever. How can people kind of separate? What are the things you're expecting to see or you would like to see on CVs that you're not seeing now?
You have to see something about the person.
Yes.
You know, you have to be able to, it's so naff and it's completely outdated to put a picture, but people can go on LinkedIn and they can actually see a photo of you now. So they can go and see, sounds dangerous, but you have to be able to see the person. And to me, if I don't think I have any specific advice around it. To get a job, to get shortlisted for a job, you have to meet those criteria. Like, you have to have those things that you're saying about, but there has to be some other way of conveying, and that's usually through the cover letter or in your objective statement that you put about yourself.
Because that's one thing I am seeing more and more in the last few years is cover letters are not being mandatory, but it seems like cover letters are the one thing that actually distinguishes you.
Gives you an
from
opportunity
someone else.
to show a bit of who you are.
But as you say, the CVs are all the same. Like, throw them in the bin. If someone can write a good cover letter and convey their ambitions and goals and, you know, what they want to get out of the role, then that's all you really need to read. Then you get them in and chat to them, and you'll see something in the person.
And don't tell me, show me. I get sick and tired of seeing CVs that have this little statement at the top, little marketing blurb that says, I'm an awesome leader and I've got great communication skills. And it's like, well, show me somewhere in this CV where I can see that. Let me decide whether you're a good communicator or you're a good leader. Don't tell me you're a great leader. That's just a marketing spiel. That means nothing to me. I just look at it and I go, oh yeah, blow smoke up my ass. What can you really do? Let me have a look. What have you done with your life? Have you volunteered and helped anybody? So are you going to be someone in my team that if someone has a problem that you're going to pick them up and help them, or you're just going to go, you're on your own, mate. I'm doing this myself. So I want to see someone that can work in a team. So I want to see someone that's played team sport or whatever. Even if it's at high school, I want to know what high school you went to. I want to know where you grew up. I want to know everything about you. So you've got 3 pages maximum on a CV to tell me all of that. So you can say, I was the leader of the debating club, or I was the school captain, or I played mixed netball, I like camping, I like woodworking, you know, so you can see, they're a bit artistic, they like to do woodworking, so that's great because geos are quite artistic. There's a lot you can, but go, well, why would I want to put that on a CV? Because that's the only thing that's going to separate you from the person next to you on another piece of paper.
Yeah. What about things like finding a niche? How much value do you put in when you see, you know, a CV come through or someone that you've been recommended from someone else? Particular niche skills, even if they're not relevant, but things that are kind of left field or even soft skills that people have. Is there anything you look for when you're recruiting or you think is of value for, you know, a team?
Oh, I forget as well, to go back on the other point, is about don't tell me what company you've worked for. What commodity have you worked in? You know, people say all the skills that they've done, but what commodity and what style of deposit? People forget that there are different styles of deposits that we want to know that people know about, that they've actually seen what the mineralogy looks like and the rocks look like and the geological setting looks like and all the different rock types they're going to be drilling through.
Is that actually something you're not seeing in CVs sometimes?
Yeah, so people just say, I worked for this company and I did this. They don't say it was iron ore or it was nickel or it was a komatiite hosted nickel sulfide deposit or it was a a laterite, nickel, cobalt deposit. They don't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of the thinking in geology is moving away from, it's that big systems thinking, being able to grasp the concept. So it's not about, I can log core or anything like that. It's like, I understand the concept of how mineral systems form, whether they be komatiites, IOCG, orogenic gold, whatever. I grasp the fundamental science and the concepts behind these deposits. It's not about, I worked in a deposit and I can log dolerite versus basalt, for example. Like, who cares?
Well, look, if that's the sort of geologist you want to be, that's fine, because we need people that love being on rigs and love just being out in the bush, logging core and logging chips. It's really cathartic, just going out in the bush, and that's all you think about every day. It's lovely. It's a really relaxing. It's actually quite relaxing. So there are people that want to do that, but sometimes you want to know what people have done so that you know that they can actually apply those fundamental concepts that James talks about to all the work that they're going to do.
Yeah, maybe I should take a back step there, because there are people that are really good at doing that, and I've employed those sort of people that you can stick on a rig and they're going to get it right, and the data you get out of it, and you pay good money to have those people doing
clean
it.
data,
So if that's your niche,
safe work site,
then do it well. So.
But
You've got to find your lane.
It's not so much about how the person presents themselves to you, because unless you are talking about a graduate program, it's very well, in my experience, I guess I'm recruiting at a high real specialist level. I'm not going to get 70 CVs. I'm going to get 12, and I'm immediately going to discount 6 of them because I either know them and I know that they're not the person, and then the other 6 I'm going to look at, and then I'm going to start really trying to understand and seeing who they know. So it's kind of different at what level you're at. But you have to remember that the person doing the recruiting, that it's more important that they really understand what role this person is going to fulfill, like what the role is. And you might have an absolutely, to take a master chef term, a banging CV, but you're still not the right person. You might be you might have been the head girl or the head boy, and you might be the captain of everything.
And then you're going to say,
what I want.
and then you go, this job is just not going to, it's going to bore them to tears.
Yeah, that's not the person I want for this job. I want them to do something that's a bit more ambiguous. Like, can they handle? Some people are really good at handling ambiguity and job role in a situation, and some people are not. They need a really structured workplace. So somehow being able to work out if you're dealing with those sort of big classifications, but it really is up to the person recruiting to craft that job ad to be the person.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then I was going to say, okay, if you're applying for a job ad, then tailor your CV
to that. Don't do a generic
job and your cover letter. If that, then you
don't
read
put
it
the wrong
and you read
company
it.
on the cover letter.
You read it 10 times and you say, well, I've done this that specifically fits.
Addresses your thing.
role.
I see your advertisement dated of that. I was really interested because I've been researching your company now for 5 years. You were on my list of companies I wanted to work
Never
for.
handed the same CV into to different companies. Every CV is tailored specifically to the job that you're applying for. In my opinion.
And also, the person that was asking about the graduate programs, remember that when you apply for a graduate program, that's going to be with quite a large organisation often. And, with some of these larger multinational companies, you probably won't be a geoscientist at the end of your career, okay? Because that's a very narrow laneway in these large multinationals. What the multinationals are actually looking for when they say they want people to demonstrate leadership is in their graduate programs, they're recruiting the leaders of the future. So they're not recruiting a geologist. They're recruiting the geologists with the diversity of skill set that they require in their global business to eventually get the CEO or the general manager of rail, and you might be a geoscientist, and you could end up being the general manager of port for someone. And that's who, in these graduate programs, often what these big companies are looking for. They're looking for their future leaders. So you won't be it's unlikely you'll end up being a technical specialist in these companies. Sometimes you do, but mostly they're recruiting the leaders of the future.
So actually I have a specific question for you, Rebecca, which is someone asked me this the other day because they knew this panel discussion was coming up. You don't see advertised positions for early resource geos coming up.
Yeah.
So how do you get these jobs?
That is actually a very good question, because you don't, and especially the type of people that we would end up in our business, it would be very rare that we would even advertise for someone, because we have our eye on people that we know have demonstrated, have a
and they would have been clients in the past.
They would have been clients in the past.
Who are doing
and
it
they'll have a
in-house.
track record of either having worked with someone or they've worked in another consultancy at some time in their career. We have, that said, I think since I've been at Cube, I might have advertised for resource geos or geostatisticians twice. I have advertised and employed 2 people, but the people that I employed were known to us. And, you know, I didn't know that they were looking for a job, so I was really trying to flush out some of the people that we know in the network. You know, if you want to be a resource geologist, if you want to be a really, really good resource geologist and or geostatistician, you have to get a lot of runs on the board.
You've got to do it, and you've got to work in mining.
And you've got to work in mining for a long time. Like we don't have anybody with less than 10 years experience working in mining.
And it's the large miners as well, because what companies these days have in-house resource capabilities? It's only the large multinationals really these days, isn't it, that do a lot of that stuff and train internally.
But even that, even, you know, in a large iron ore miner that I won't mention, you know, you don't even do the full resource estimation process from where to go yourself. So
it's all siloed.
It's all siloed. So there'll be somebody who's an interpretive geologist, then there'll be somebody who's doing just the geostats, and then there'll be somebody who's doing just the estimation, and then you've got the classification. You know, it's all even siloed, so we wouldn't necessarily get someone who just had that. In our business, we actually want people that are really, really smart on resource geology, but they also have to know a lot about mining, because our clients are just about exclusively miners, and we have to be able to have an immense amount of credibility, and so you have to have at least 10, 15 years of mining company or mine site experience before you would come and work for us.
And I learnt my resource modelling at Western Mining, you know, so Ian Glacken was our internal specialist at Western Mining, and so Ian basically taught me, and Viv Snowden when she was with Snowden. So when she first started, Viv came up and taught all us grads what we were trying to do, how we were trying, because as mine geologists we had to do our own resources, and so that's how we were taught. Viv Snowden came to site, taught us geostats, what the principles of it, what inverse distance squared and cubed and was, and why you used them, and what you were trying to achieve. And you know, back in the days when you're using a planimeter and stuff like that, so you learn it from first principles, and then you got into data mine, and you know, we had our specialists like Ian Glacken, and so I was one of the lucky ones that learnt quite early on in my career resource modelling. But these days you wouldn't get a Guernsey, would you?
No, you would. I mean, like, I've got my eye on a couple of people like that I know, but I know I'm not interested in them until they've actually done a hell of a lot of work working for a mining company. Just can't even take them on, because we don't actually have the time. We do supervise. We don't have, I mean, some of the other consultancies, the larger consultancy, do have a 2-tiered model where they might have principals and then they might have the doers. We don't. We're very, very flat, and everybody is a doer. Even the principals have to. They manage their own client relationships, they manage their own projects. They're quite collaborative, which is great. So there might be 1 or 2 of them. And the good thing about being in a team is that you can go and ask someone who's got another particular specialty. I think something like nearly 50% of them have postgraduate qualifications in geostats, because they're really interested in it.
So it's quite significant.
Yeah. And either with the ECU or the one in France.
Adelaide. Is there one in Adelaide?
Yeah,
as well?
Adelaide, or there's one in there's one at Fontainebleau in France, and then there's one of the guys went to Alberta in Canada to do his postgrad. So we've got, you know, they're career resource people.
Yeah.
They didn't start off as career resource people, but they had an aptitude for it, and, you know, spent enough time doing it in a place like this, you know, doing that work.
And I suppose the reason people ask questions like that is people think, well, one day I'm going to want to move to the city. I don't want to be in the bush all my life doing FIFO. What is there for me at the end?
Yeah.
And you've got to remember that in geoscience there are lots of skills that can be transferred to other industries. So we're all project managers. We just don't have a certificate that says you are qualified in project management, but you've done it all your career. So you can move into a different sector and project manage somewhere. You can take your leadership skills and your safety skills that you learn are very transferable. You can take them elsewhere. So there are other ways. Just need to think a bit creatively that, you know, that resource modelling isn't the only avenue to get your bum on a seat in the city, basically.
Well, I'm not a resource geologist.
Yeah.
Never was going to be, because I don't have the attention to detail, and I'm not patient enough. But my skills were people skills and management skills. So that's the thing.
Bringing out the best in your team.
Yeah, that has what, I mean, and I'm not saying that to say that I'm fantastic at it. It'll probably get people that work for me that say I'm dreadful. But that, someone's prepared to employ me to manage people. So I'm happy with that.
I look at my career, I've done postgraduate studies and things, but what I do a lot of now is on the corporate finance and, going out and presenting to stockbrokers.
You've got to raise the dollars to get those holes drilled.
You've got to raise the bucks. And I find that side of the industry very interesting. So you have evolved, you have that fundamental skill set, but have evolved away from just being a geoscientist, as you say.
Yeah. So and that's just what we don't always know what our niche is until we've done our geology for a few years and we go, oh, that really blows my hair back. I like that part of geology, or I like this part of geology.
Well, it circles back to the start you pick that person, you say, wow, find a person whose career you admire and go, what did that look like? And it's hard if you're not connected. It comes back into the networking. We'll start meeting some people. There's plenty of networking opportunities. WA Mining Club, there's Women in Mining, there's a hell of a lot of different forums. There's AIG forums, there's IMM forums. There's a whole lot where you can actually meet people and start to listen to people and find out what looks like an interesting career for you or career choice, and then stalk them on LinkedIn. How long did they do this, and this? Find a couple of them. Right. Well, that's my path. It might not be your path. You might stumble into it opportunistically as well, like I did.
So that's actually good, because I guess this is probably the last point we've got, or the last theme, which is making career choices. So something that I've definitely struggled with in my career is knowing at a time you have an opportunity or multiple opportunities that might pop up at the same time, and actually deciding.
You, Ben.
Well, but actually deciding which one's going to be the best. Or even if you've got, you've just got one opportunity and you're trying to decide between your current role and something. It might be more money, or it might be another title that doesn't really mean much. Is there anything that you use to kind of decide? Do you use mentors? Do you kind of go through a decision tree, or how do you look at these opportunities as they come up?
I think it takes some time, and I'm 35 now and sort of still figuring out the pathway, but it takes some time to really figure out what your passion is and what direction you want to take your career. And once you do, and I know what mine is, I want to find something. And for me to find something, that's to be on the junior end of the spectrum. It's to be the MD of a company. It's to be going out and raising dough. It's to be drilling holes in the ground. And, to find something, that's how I see I'm going to do it, rather than be part of a big company. But that's taken me 10 years to sort of understand that. And now every decision I make is for that purpose.
So your ultimate goal.
Yeah. But prior to that, it was a good opportunity pops up. If it excites me and I think, oh God, your heart starts fluttering, you think, that'll be a bit of fun, or these people look like the sort of people I want to work with. Try and remove money from the equation. Like the last job I took a significant pay cut because money, and especially when you're a bit younger and you have a bit more flexibility, money shouldn't be the overriding factor. It should be your passion for the job, because if you're passionate about it, and you're excited about it and you want to be there day in, day out, the rewards will come, and the financial rewards will come too if that's, what one of your ultimate goals is. And let's face it, we all want to be comfortable.
That's right. And I think, you need to, I've always, once I kind of figured out what blew my hair back in geoscience, and that I really enjoyed the people and all the characters that I met, and I just love, everyone's such a unique character and everyone's got an amazing story, and it's always the people and it's the discoveries and the good scientists, and that's what I find exciting. So I've kind of found my laneway and I settled into it, and then I had to look at, well, here I am now, where do I want to be? Like, what does my life look like from retirement backwards? So then roll backwards, do the Benjamin Button thing and roll backwards and think about, well, if this is what I want, the vision I have for my end life stage, how am I going to get myself there? And that helps you with your decision making. Am I going to live in Australia? Okay, well, that that's if you're an overseas person, you might have to ask yourself, do I see my long-term future in Australia? Okay, so now I need to figure out what am I going to do in this country and what does it look like and what am I going to say yes to? So that means overseas stuff you're probably not going to do because it's not going to keep you in the country. Then you go, well, what sort of people do I want to be around? I love being around mine finders, so find yourself great mine finders that have got good track record. And so when you get offered a job by someone in a company that's got a great exploration, strike rate, discovery rate, you're going to say, yes, that's who I want to work with. So if you've got a vision like that, those decisions are going to be so easy to make, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the, a bit older than 35. For me, it purely comes down to who do I want to work with. And the couple of times in my life that I have had two choices, I've known that I'm actually safe whichever choice I take. Either one would be a fulfilling option for me. I rely on my gut a bit. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, I don't want to work with that person. I might really like them, but I can't see me working. I really want to work with this person. It's this, for me, it has been around people, not necessarily.
And the rest of your life's a long time to do something you don't like doing,
And be with people that you don't, or you can't learn from them, or they won't challenge you. We've said that.
And we only need, basically, research has shown, I think, that once you earn $80,000 a year, you actually live a very good quality of life. You can stay well, you can be happy, you can afford to go out to a restaurant and have an overseas holiday once a year. That's a pretty bloody good quality of life that a lot of people around the globe would be the envy of. And let's face it, most graduate geologists are there already, right? So there isn't much else that you want in your life. I know that the property market's getting harder and harder to get into, but that'll come, everything's going to catch up one day. So I think we just got to say to ourselves, how much is enough when it comes to money, and how many toys are enough toys? You got to get back to the basics of what life is and just live a good life and be happy.
Yeah. What does my life look like?
What does my life look like
when I work there?
And we can say that at the end of it, coming towards in the next phase. But you can, at the phase that I'm at, I look back and I go, well, how many cars do I need, or how many overseas holidays do I need? Actually, I don't need a lot. I actually quite like my veggie patch these days.
I'm getting to that stage, but I'm having a shitload of fun doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you're in the heart.
It's because I pick the people that I, like you say, you pick the people you want to work with. Yeah. I like this guy. I like people I work with, or Bronski and guys like that. I like working with these people. It's good fun. You have that excitement.
And they G you up when you're around them, and really exciting.
And I'm going to take this job where, we went through the interview process and it was a tick box exercise. Well, this bloke rocked up and we had a cup of coffee and a chat for half an hour. Didn't talk about anything like geology. Well, for me, it's that one. So everyone's different, but it is. You go with your gut, and you go with what's
and you also people that you respect and that you get respect from. Even when you're young, you will be respected.
Also, do you due diligence?
Oh yes, that's what I always say. Make sure you figure out who's on the board of the company you're working for, and do the values of the company that you're going to work for align with your own personal values. And I can't put enough emphasis on the words values. Understand what your values are, and look at the values of your directors and the sort of drill holes they put in the ground. And are the drill holes adding value, or are they just for a nice quick hit to get the share price up? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to work for? And that'll help you make decisions. Values are really important.
It's hard though when you're young, because we've all looked at millions of websites,
we have
web pages, and we know what the pattern of ramping looks like. It's hard, but that's a skill that you actually need.
And you will grow it over time. You start to learn who the sharks are.
Even when you're young, you can look at the projects and you can sort of. There's a lot of stuff available on the websites nowadays where you can sort of go through their corporate presentations, and I'm obviously speaking from the junior end of the spectrum, but you can do a lot of due diligence and make sure that you go in at least with your eyes wide open.
Look, in exploration, go look at a magnetic map of Australia and go look at where the elephant country is when you look at those maps and the patterns. There's some pretty exciting places out there that have not been drilled yet, and go and look at those and just go, I want to go stick a drill hole in there. That is so exciting. And then go and figure out who's exploring.
Who's doing it?
Yeah.
Well, you can
go find out who's doing it. Yeah.
There's all sorts that that a PAX thing is great.
Yeah.
You can go in and you can see who owns all the ground.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of public things.
Yeah.
Or find yourself a friend over 50 who's been around the blocks for a while and say, I'm thinking about these things. Find yourself.
Again, it's a small industry.
Yeah.
If they've been doing the shonky or there's a bad vibe about these people, it doesn't take many phone calls.
Don't be afraid to get a
nowadays,
reference on your potential, on your future possible
Yeah.
employers.
That's a good point.
It works
actually.
two ways. Yeah.
Especially in the junior market.
Yeah. 100%.
I always say to
100%.
young people that come for an interview, so look, we might not be the right company for you, but certainly if you get offered a job and you want to know a bit about the company and the players at the company, give me a call and I'll tell you what I know. I'm happy to talk about people. And then if I think they're really dodgy, I'll say I'm probably not the best person to talk to about them.
She's decoded her code.
Yeah, I decode my code. Yeah. There you go. You've got the code now. Yeah.
All right, we're past 7 o'clock, which means we're probably going to call it here. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks to our panel for participating today. It's really good, actually. Those of you who are part of the mentoring program, if you haven't met up at least twice, then you need to meet up more, because now's the time to start. You're really kicking it up. Make sure that you're working towards some goals, or at least working towards what you guys have agreed upon. We will still let you know about a midterm, which is coming up. But yeah, wait for that in an email. Hopefully that is face-to-face, and we have something in the city if things stay the same way with COVID. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you, everyone.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers.
That was great. Thank you.
That's good. Are we offline?
Are we off?